talk for a minute about the color purple itself. I'm curious about the title and about how you all relate to actually the hue. I know I read somewhere that when you were living in San Francisco, you actually had purple walls in your apartment, and I think I saw on Twitter yesterday, Jennifer, that you were picking out purple carpeting for your dressing room.
Yes, purple's my favorite.
But I've also read, John, that there's intentionally no purple in the set design and the costumes. Why don't we start with you? What does purple mean?
Please do, because I do not have any purple walls.
All right.
And in fact, the one concern I had in naming the book The Color Purple was that I do love purple, but I know that in this culture, people will do anything to death.
Yeah.
They will kill it. And so I thought, I don't want to have to sacrifice this color that I love because people will just overuse it. You know, you can't imagine how many purple things people have given me. The point of what happened was that when I was writing it, I was spending a lot of time in the country, and I was very much in nature, and I was starting to notice how much purple there is in nature, and how we tend to think of purple as a rare color, and it isn't really. I mean, if you really look. Just as you would think of what happens with Celie and her stepfather, or in that community, you might think that's rare, but it isn't. It's just you have to look, and then you see it all over, which is exactly what has happened.
Let's talk a little about sexuality in this show. And again, Alice, why don't we start with you? I think I read that you were initially disappointed with the way that the movie handled the relationship between Celie and Shug. Can you talk a little about that and what the concern was?
Well, I knew they weren't going to do much with it when Quincy Jones came to tell me, "Don't worry, Alice, Stephen, you know that kiss? Stephen is going to make it very tasteful." Oh, Lord. So I thought, okay. They were very shy. They were, and I understand, I think. But when the musical came around, I was very clear that I wanted the relationship to be a real relationship. These women love each other, and they show it.
You alluded to this a few moments ago, but when the book was first released, it was sort of controversial in the Black community. There was a fair amount of criticism about the portrayal of Black men. At the same time, when the musical first came out, I think the Schuberts have told me it still has drawn the most significant Black audiences of any musical on Broadway. Do you think that the way we think about how Black men are portrayed in the book has changed over time? Or how do you explain the sort of differing reactions?
Well, the Black men who were complaining hadn't read the book. And when I understood that, there was no problem.
Right. That'll do it. That'll do it.
I've always been the kind of gal that had a lot to say. I've said the things that's on my mind, too dumb to shy away. But you hush my mouth and still me with a song I never heard. I guess that means that you are just too beautiful for words. I've seen this life from high and low and all that's in between. I've danced with dudes, crooned with counts, been courted like a queen. But when I see what's in your heart, all the rest is blurred. The grace you bring into this world's too beautiful for words.
So John Doyle.
That sounds ominous.
So you burst onto the American scene with this production of Sweeney Todd that kind of established your reputation here as you're often called a minimalist, a guy who boils down these musical spectaculars so that all that's left is their very essence, and somehow there's more meaning that emerges as a result. I think my colleague Ben Brantley called you the ultimate diet guru for hefty musicals.
I wish.
So how does this even make sense? Isn't musical theater by definition spectacle? Don't we think about dance numbers and costumes and sets as essential elements of why we go to Broadway?
People call me a minimalist. It's actually, I think it's all nonsense, really, to be absolutely frank with you. Because I go into the room and try to be kind of as honest as I can be any day of my life.
It's interesting, yesterday you allowed Alice and me to watch a bit of rehearsal, and I heard you tell the ensemble to change the way they were moving because you said, I don't want it to look like a musical. What did that mean?
Well, first of all, I think I would be right in saying that the people who are inhabiting the community of Putnam County, Georgia, at that particular time would not have seen a musical. They may have seen at some points in the story movies, but so much musical theatre, and believe me, I like Hello, Dolly just as much as the next one, so don't get me wrong. You know, everybody thinks I'm some kind of art house guy. This is not the truth. But it has to come from character. That's why I love doing Sondheim's work so much. It comes from character. And you have to ask yourself the question, okay, what would these people know? What would they recognize? They don't know about Bob Fosse, genius as he was, but they don't know those cliches, if we call them that. So how do you, and we did some today, didn't we? Because I was doing a couple of moments and I thought, oh, John, you're just trying to be somebody else. And I just changed some stuff in order to tell the story again. And that brings out its own dance and its own choreography, but it's stuff that belongs to those people, not imposed upon them, but because they would have danced, I hope, but it's coming from the words.
Right.
Love alive in me, I stand as tall as the tallest tree. I'm thankful for every day that I'm given, both the easy and hard ones I'm living. But most of all, I'm thankful for loving who I really am. I'm beautiful. Yes, I'm beautiful. And I'm a new world in your eyes. With you, my whole spirit rise. And what about hope? What about hope? What about joy? What about joy? What about tears when I'm happy? What about wings when I fall? I want you to be a story for me that I can believe in forever. And what about love? What about love? You and me, love. Sing to me, what about